you're early. Did you?
Yeah, I grounded myself.
Chuck believes that he's dealing with electromagnetic sensitivity, but what he's actually dealing with is obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD. OCD are obsessions. Those are things that we think about, intrusive thoughts, things that keep our mind busy and spin, and worry thoughts. And these things spiral. And compulsions, things that we do, safety behaviors, checking behaviors, and rituals. In this case, it's to take off everything that has a magnetic charge. For Chuck, he's also asking everyone else around him to do the same thing, which often happens. That's why it's so obsessive.
I have 3 consults before lunchtime. 3.
That's great, Jimmy.
Yep. The worm has turned.
Oh, that's really great.
And I think it's really stark that we get to see Chuck and all of the things that he has to do, all of these rituals, these behaviors that he has to do in order to make himself feel less anxiety. The problem with OCD is that it can grow out of hand very, very quickly. It usually starts with something really small, a thought or idea. What you're usually trying to do is control the uncontrollable. If you put that cup in that perfect place, or you wash your hands enough, or you don't touch these things, or you touch these things at a certain number of times, then it makes you feel more calm and relaxed. It actually lowers your anxiety. And that's the problem. That's what makes OCD so difficult to deal with, is that you have to deal with those intrusive thoughts, all of those negative thought spirals, and then you actually have to do exposure and response prevention. Go towards things that make you feel uncomfortable, and then slowly don't do those safety behaviors or rituals that have made you feel safe. So you need really good coping mechanisms, because you're going to feel worse before you feel better. I think that Better Call Saul does a really good job of taking OCD seriously and showing how strongly it affects everyone around you and yourself, how people stop being able to do things that they enjoy, stop doing the jobs that they can, how much time it takes to prepare and just exist. But this scene, I do think that they use it a little bit as a comical nature. I think that you see it and it looks cute because he has his mylar sheeting to protect him from all of the electromagnetic rays. But I think that it goes a little bit too far in that we see it as funny instead of the amount of panic and distress that it causes. And OCD destroys lives. It takes away happiness. It's like wrapping yourself inside of a plastic bag and just slowly sucking all of the air out. You no longer can breathe, can exist, because it always takes a little bit more. OCD never says it's enough. After a while, you have to add another piece, another ritual. So something that started out as just having to count once or touch or tap or deal with or count or think something becomes one more. Because when you're stressed, you need to do just one more ritual. But I think that that scene, if you take it in a serious nature, that scene of him seeing everything and everything that's processing in his head, I think is done really well. That's what often happens, is that you see someone and they look calm or they look serene. Not in this case. But what's happening inside is massive amounts of distress and anxiety, but they're doing everything they can to just hold it together. We often don't know what other people are going through, and that's why I think that we really need to handle other people with a lot more empathy and care, because we don't know the levels of distress or the bad things that might be happening inside of their world. And this is exactly one of the techniques that you would use, is you would slowly expose yourself to the things that you're really afraid of in small bite-sized pieces. You want to give yourself different tools and techniques to be able to lower your anxiety, because you're not going to be using your usual rituals, which in Chuck's case is being able to go back inside and protecting himself with mylar sheeting. He's just outside there and being able to slowly endure, for him, electromagnetic rays. But what I would be saying is that what you're actually dealing with is the amount of distress and thoughts that come with it, which, yeah, you're going to have to journal out.
Don't worry about that, right? Look down, look at the grass.
And Jimmy's such a thoughtful brother. He notices right away that Chuck is starting to fixate on the transformer that's giving out to Chuck what he believes are all those electromagnetic waves that are causing him distress. So right away, he pulls his attention to focus on something else, which is a perfect distraction technique.
Kick off your shoes like this. When was the last time you did that? Feels good, right?
And even though Chuck has so much animosity towards his brother, he knows and trusts him. And when you're in a lot of distress and your anxiety is really high, to be able to trust anyone when you're very distressed is a huge show of how strongly he believes in him. What Jimmy's doing is using a mindfulness and a centering, grounding technique by being able to take off his shoes and his socks and just feel something differently. Think something else instead of all of those distress thoughts. Because your brain says, well, if I'm not having to pay attention to these electromagnetic waves and I'm not dying, then I guess everything must be okay. And your levels of anxiety and cortisol and adrenaline go down.
When was the last time you did that? Feels good, right? Yeah. Grass between your toes feels nice.
And you see those confirming thoughts, his soft voice that he speaks with him with? That is textbook perfect. Jimmy is a really wonderful support person when people are in distress. And Chuck does it. You see him now start to look down. Let his feet feel the grass beneath him and really focus and pay his attention to something that's positive instead of having outside be something that's stressful.
Well, I think maybe it's time we go in. A lot of work to do. We need to get ready. You need to get ready.
Now, what often happens is when we watch people that are in distress, it actually causes us secondary trauma. It's really hard to see people that we care about going through things that are stressful for them. And so sometimes we push them too far. Right away when Chuck says, you know what, I think that this is enough. I think that I should go in now. He has a win underneath his belt. He was able to do it. Jimmy could have made the mistake and say, let's just spend another few seconds. Let's deal with this, which would have pushed Chuck too far and maybe increased his anxiety even more. But he didn't. He quietly nods and says, yeah, let's go in, and leaves it be. And he ends it on something positive. When we're dealing with exposure therapy, we want to try to end it on a positive, on a win, so that the next time that we do something, we can feel good about it. Your job as a therapist or a support person is to pull the person back. Do a little bit less than more. You want to get it over with because you want this to be over yesterday, but it's little tiny steps. As long as you're working towards what you're nervous about, you will start to feel better. It does take repetition though. So be patient and be positive.
You got this, okay? No problem.
Yes.
Do you see how much strength and courage it's taking everything within Chuck to go towards this? He knows he's going to be facing all of those fears that he's been hiding from. And the problem with OCD is that when we do our rituals or response prevention or safety behaviors, we feel a lowering of our levels of anxiety. So going towards something, it feels like you're going into battle without any armor. So it's taking everything for Chuck to be able to just go outside. Jimmy, knowing this though, gives those supportive words of comfort and that he can do it. And that's what Chuck needs to be able to imbue inside of himself so that he can continue to go forward when everything's saying, stop, this is dangerous.
Is the suit okay? Is it too tight or too hot?
Yeah. No, it's good.
And why did Chuck start to say yeah instead of no when Jimmy was asking him if the suit is too tight? Is because he isn't really there. Jimmy's doing another technique to be able to bring him back into the here and now, because remember that regret lives in the past and anxiety lives in the future. He's going through in his head all of the different challenges that he's going to have to overcome, and so he's thinking about that instead of being there. And Jimmy's doing a really great job of drawing him back.
Yeah, well, you look good.
Can't even tell that's under there.
It was a good idea.
He placed some mylar sheeting inside of the jacket. He's not going into the gladiatorial ring without anything. He has a little bit of armor with him, and that's a smart way to deal with this, so you can take a smaller step. Sometimes it's nice to be able to take little movements towards it, not having to jump right into the deep end when you've just learned how to swim.
If at any point it's too much, you're uncomfortable, you turn around and come home. You want maybe like a safe word?
How about get me the hell home?
That'll work. Okay.
And he does such a good job. Jimmy's such a good brother. I just love Jimmy. Okay, so the things that he did wonderful in this is that he, one, propped him up, two, said that, you know what, at any point, I will take you home. It doesn't matter. You get overwhelmed. You are not stuck there. A lot of anxiety and OCD as an anxiety disorder is held in the feeling of being trapped, that they don't have any way that they can do it. There is no recourse. I love the idea of a safe word. I often ask people to have a safe word or this quiet message of like touching your nose or pulling on your ear, something that you can let someone else know without having to actually share with everyone what you're dealing with inside, because that's personal and some people may not want to be able to share that with everyone around them.
Okay, let's do this.
Let's do this.
Okay.
Another piece that I think most people might miss is that he lets Chuck go first. So right away, Chuck is able to make the pace. He doesn't have to feel rushed. He doesn't feel in distress. If he stops, Jimmy's there right next to him. If you go first, you may not be able to even pay attention to the other person being in distress.
Looking good. Just going for a little ride. Here, let me get that for you. There you go.
And those words of encouragement, I can't say it enough how helpful and necessary they are. You want it to be honest. You want it to come from a place of support. And you don't want to be too hard on the other person. You don't want to push them too much.
Blue shirt, yellow wall, silver door.
What Chuck is doing right now on his own is in vivo exposure. That's real life exposure to the things that he's feeling afraid of. When he's reading out certain things that are around him, what he's doing is he's getting out of his head. It's another different technique by just saying things so that it's hard for our brain. We're kind of a single parsing unit. We think we can multitask, but we don't actually multitask very well, which I really know. What he's doing is he's saying what's around him to keep his mind in the here and now so he doesn't go through a worry spiral, which can then increase his anxiety, because the more that you say danger to your brain, the greater chance you're going to get yourself an adrenaline, epinephrine overflow into your system, and then he's going to have an anxiety attack. And it's good. He's breathing. You want to make sure that when you're really anxious, you keep on breathing, because if you don't, when we do those fast chest breaths, we actually feel more anxious. We're ramping up for danger. And so by doing that slow, deep breathing, he's letting his brain know that everything's safe. I'm not running from a tiger. And you never really know what someone's going through. I think that a lot of times we get frustrated and upset with people that are taking too long, have stopped to do something, or even people that drive really slow. You don't know if they have a driving fear or phobia and they're doing everything they can to just get to somewhere, or something really traumatic has already happened in their life. I think that this gives us a little bit more empathy to everyone else that are dealing with things, and a little bit of kindness really does go a long way. I would prefer it if Chuck had a professional doing this with him. This is really hard. You can get overloaded and kind of stuck. Having a support person that you feel comfortable with can make this process a lot easier, because if you need to just leave or go somewhere or get some water, there's someone else there to be able to talk you through it. Plus, if you get stuck in a thought spiral or you're fixating on someone, they can pull you out also. But you want to make sure that it's someone that you really do trust, that isn't going to mock, that isn't going to push you too far.
Yellow bananas, green grapes.
I would probably already have him go out, and that would have been perfect. Get one thing and leave, or just enter and leave. A lot of times it's the repetition. We're just going to stare at something, then we're just going to go in for a second, then we're just going to go in for 3 minutes. Smaller, little, tiny chunks. I really appreciate that we see it through his eyes. We hear that buzzing, that hum. For many people, they wouldn't hear it at all. But when there's something that bothers you, you become hypersensitive to it. You notice every little bit about it, every germ, everything that someone has touched, everything that's out of place, everything that is asymmetrical. For him, he's processing so much. And a lot of times, someone may look really calm and relaxed. We really don't know what's underneath the surface. It's like that duck. They look really serene, but the feet are really paddling as quickly as they can. The thing with OCD is that it can grow really quickly if you don't deal with it. And often it's one of the anxieties that is really sticky. It takes a lot of work because you need to do the journaling, you need to deal with the thoughts, and you need to deal with the rituals. I have dealt with people that it ends up overtaking their entire life. They can't leave their bedroom, they can't touch the floor, they can't go outside. Yes, sometimes people will cover their entire area with whichever is protecting them, or they have to go through so many rituals that it takes them hours before they can even leave their house. I think that for some people, they may see this and just kind of laugh or mock. I think that Better Call Saul did a great job to really empathize with the pain that's behind this. I see this and I see all of the hardship and how many steps it would take and the amount of a cost it takes on a person to have to live with OCD. And the wonderful thing is that OCD is actually really treatable. I'm not going to say that it's fast or it's easy, but it's systematic, it's mathematical. You're retraining your brain. So if you or someone that you know is dealing with it, there is hope. They can get better. It takes work, it takes time. You want to find the right person that you feel comfortable taking this journey with, but you can get out of it. Need to make your own quick getaway? Then get prepared with the knowledge you need with today's sponsor, Brilliant, where you can gain an understanding of the basics of computer science, physics, quantum mechanics, game theory, and everything you need to get prepared for whatever the world may throw your way. Brilliant is an amazing tool for learning STEM interactively. So if you want to learn more about science, technology, engineering, mathematics, just check out Brilliant's growing catalog of courses, which are specifically crafted to help you learn concepts by working through them yourself in visual, hands-on ways. And that's the best way most of us learn. And all the lessons are presented in little tiny bite-sized pieces, so you can learn at your own pace. There's no pressure. And if you ever feel stuck, Brilliant has in-depth explanations that break down the material even more. Like their course on logic with challenging problem-solving exercises. You'll construct those critical reasoning and thinking skills that are the basis of mathematical reasoning. They also have the course on scientific thinking, where you'll open your eyes to the world around you by solving puzzles with science. And in this, you'll learn the laws of physics and the principles of engineering and learn the rules by playing and exploring the concepts to solve the problems interactively, which is the fun, easy way to learn. To get started for free, just head on over to brilliant.org/Georgia Dow or click on the link in the description, and the first 200 people will get 20% off Brilliant's annual subscription. Just click on the button on the screen or head on over to brilliant.org/Georgia Dow. Clicking on that button really does help out my channel, so thank you so much, and so does clicking on the playlist above for more fun reaction videos. So hopefully I will see you in the next video. So hopefully you like this video on Chuck and his OCD. If you found that it was helpful, you learned something, please hit subscribe and please share it with other people so that more people can learn about it as well.